your mind, every word a step forward. Let the learning begin. Let the learning begin. Boost your English. Boost your English. B-Y-E. B-Y-E. Welcome to the workshop.
BYE Workshop, Episode 3. Welcome to the third session of the BYE Workshop. I am Ryan. If you are looking for comfort or entertainment, you are in the wrong place. This is not a conversation. It is a clinical extraction of linguistic data. We are here to dismantle the English language and replace ambiguity with surgical precision. In this workshop, we do not suggest. We instruct. Your progress depends entirely on your ability to process these facts with absolute focus. Listen closely. There will be no repetitions. Let us begin. The vocabulary presented now focuses on morphology and how suffixes alter the meaning of root words. Able or able. A suffix expressing capability or possibility. For example, washable means something that can be washed. Full. A suffix indicating the abundance or presence of a quality. For example, beautiful literally means full of beauty. Less. A suffix indicating the absence or lack of something. For example, breathless means out of breath. Scion or ation. Suffixes that transform a verb into a noun of action or result. For example, the verb to inform becomes the noun information. The focus now shifts to pronouns and the concept of neutrality. They and their. Plural pronouns used to refer to two or more entities. Crucially, they are also used as singular pronouns to refer to a person whose gender is not specified, or to deliberately circumvent gender issues. For example, if someone calls, tell them I am busy. The following phrasal verbs utilize the root verb to come. To come out. To be published or revealed to the public. For example, the new sci-fi movie comes out next Friday. To come across. To find something by chance, or to give a specific impression to others. For example, he comes across as a very cold person. To come in. To enter a physical space. For example, come in, the airlock is open. To come along. To accompany someone, or to make progress on a task. For example, how is your new project coming along? We will now examine how to articulate degree and proportion. Extent. The size, scale, or degree of something. For example, he did not realize the extent of the conspiracy. To some extent. Partially true, but not entirely. For example, to some extent, the android has human feelings. To a large extent. Mainly or in great part. For example, the mission success depends to a large extent on the new software. To what extent? Used in questions to ask how far or how much. For example, to what extent can we trust this AI? The next set of vocabulary navigates availability, cost, and transactions. Available. Ready for use, or a person who is free to participate. For example, the suspect is currently not available for questioning. Free. Costing nothing, or possessing liberty and free time. For example, this synthesizer plugin is completely free. Free of charge. A formal phrase emphasizing the total absence of billing. For example, maintenance for your implants is provided free of charge. Expensive. Costing a significant amount of money. For example, vintage drum machines are getting incredibly expensive. Cheap. Low in price, or of poor quality and manufacture. For example, the lock was cheap, it took him 2 seconds to pick it. To give. To transfer possession freely to someone. For example, the informant gave me the access codes. To provide. To supply what is necessary or required. For example, the corporation provides replicants for off-world colonies. To sell. To exchange a good or service for money. For example, he sells vintage electronics on the black market. To offer. To present something for someone to accept or reject. For example, the mob boss offered him a deal he could not refuse. To purchase. To acquire a good or service in exchange for payment, typically in a formal context. For example, he had to purchase the equipment directly from the manufacturer. The following terms are used to express intensity and comparison. More. Used to form the comparative of superiority or indicate a larger quantity. For example, this model is more complex than the previous one. Far. Indicates physical distance, or acts as a formal amplifier for a comparative. For example, this director's cut is far better than the theatrical release. Way. Indicates a path or method, or acts as a highly informal amplifier. For example, the bass on this track is way too loud. The focus now shifts to cognitive processes, deduction, and comprehension. To think. The general action of using one's mind or conceiving an idea. For example, the android paused to think before answering. To deduce. To draw a logical conclusion from precise facts or clues. For example, the inspector deduced that the murder weapon was a laser scalpel. To gather. To infer a conclusion based on indirect context or observation. For example, I gather from your trench coat that you are a private investigator. To figure out. To actively discover a solution or understand a problem after mental effort. For example, it took hours to figure out how the mainframe was hacked. To understand. To grasp the meaning of a situation or statement. For example, do you understand the gravity of this transmission? To get. The informal equivalent of to understand. For example, I still do not get the ending of that time travel movie. Finally, we address totality, absence, and numerical quantification. All. The entirety of a group or quantity. For example, all the replicants were retired. Whole. The absolute entirety of a single, undivided unit. For example, he hacked the whole mainframe in under a minute. Every. Considering all members of a group individually. For example, every detective in the precinct is looking for him. None. Not a single element among a defined group. For example, none of the suspects had a solid alibi. Something and someone. An unspecified thing or person, mainly used in affirmative statements. For example, something is moving in the shadows, someone is watching us. Anything and anyone. Indicates an open choice or replaces something and someone in questions and negations. For example, anyone can learn to program this machine. Nothing and no one. The absolute absence of a thing or person. The accompanying verb must remain affirmative. For example, no one survived the incident, there is nothing left. Many. Used to indicate a large quantity of countable items. For example, how many floppy disks are left? Much. Used to indicate a large quantity of uncountable concepts, masses, or fluids. For example, we do not have much time before the bomb explodes. Congratulations to those who have listened to this session in its entirety. Your discipline is the first step toward true mastery. I trust this workshop has been profitable to your learning process. As of April 2026, the BYE podcast has over 30 episodes available online. Each one is a repository of vocabulary, grammar, and detailed explanations on a wide range of subjects. You will also find short stories designed for both your engagement and your instruction. Use these resources wisely. Keep boosting your English. Bye for now.